Hello, guys. Today I'll be doing the Indian Contract Act 1872, Chapter 1, and putting the recording, uploading the recording in my channel. So let's start. First, we're starting from the preamble. Indian Contract Act 1872 came into force on 25th of April 1872. The preamble states that, which most of us doesn't actually put much notice into, whereas it is expedient to define and amend certain parts of the law relating to contracts, it is hereby enacted as follows. So, not much is stated here. So, whatever the definition they are saying, and amendment of the certain parts that's relating to contract, that law we are about to learn. So it's kind of like a one line introductory part of the Bear Act or the enactment that the Parliament has given us. So, first we are starting preliminary, section 1, that is short title. This act may be called the Indian Contract Act 1872, which is almost same for all the acts. Like in section 1, we have the short title only and extent and commencement. So, and definition is always in section 2 or 3. I mean, that is what I have seen, and that is what actually it is in all or most of the acts. You see, um, there's one section 1 is always covers that short title, extent, and commencement, the brief summary of what the act, like the full name of the act, the year in which it was passed, and to which places it applies, and when did it commenced or came into force. And then the definition part comes, which is usually in section 2 and 3. That is some words that are used in the act enactment that are properly defined. So we're going to read that very quickly. Short title, extent, and commencement. This act may be called the Indian Contract Act. It extends to the whole of India, and it shall come into force on the first day of September 1872. So they use the word shall because it was something that will happen in the future, as it was written in the, long time back. But yeah, but we have to follow the wordings of the Bear Act. It's better to use it, but we can also use our words, no problem, while writing answers. And saving is it's all concised into section 1 only, short title, extent, commencement, and saving, no separate sections for that, which is good. Nothing herein contained shall affect the provisions of any statute, act, or regulation not hereby expressly repealed, nor any usage or custom or trade, nor any incident of any contract not inconsistent with the provisions of this act. So this Contract Act will not affect any statute, act, or regulation that has not been, repealed by the Parliament, that is still in force, and it will also not affect any customs or usage that actually, expressly, not actually, that expressly doesn't contravenes the provisions of this act. Mostly, um, transfer of property act and other laws that relates to contract, that is somewhat similar to this. And the definition part, you will see the terms that are there also in contract and also in transfer of property act and also maybe in tenancy act and negotiable instrument act. Those are somewhat similar, like this or that, 2 3 words different to suit the special law or specific law, whatever you say. Anyway, let's move to the interpretation clause. In this act, the following words and expressions are used in the following senses unless a contrary intention appears from the context. So, if no other intention appears while construing the provision in the rest of the enactment, then this whatever is stated in the definition clause, that will apply for the terms that we'll find in the rest of the enactment. So first is we'll study proposal. And what is that? When one person signifies to another his willingness to do or abstain from doing anything with a view to obtaining the assent the other to such act or abstinence, he is said to make a proposal. So in contract, the first clause is we make the proposal clause. That is, we are tendering, or we are giving the person or inviting the say an opportunity. We are tendering the person the opportunity to do something, or to sign a business with us, or to sign a pact with us, or to enter into an agreement. Like here it is, that will be very much literal if I say to enter into an agreement with us. Like, why should he enter into another person enter into an agreement with us? So what has he to get, or what has she to get? So what does that person has to get? So that we are saying, stating that yeah, you'll get if you sign this agreement with us, you'll get this benefits, and this returns, and you can invest in our stocks, and this and that. So these are the clauses, and together it will be said that we are making the proposal to this person. If you enter into an agreement, you'll get this and this. So will you do that? So when that person said yes, I will do that, I will invest. Say I said that please invest 20% of your income in my stocks. So that person said that yes, I will do that, I will invest 20% of that my money in your stocks. So that means he is accepting my proposal. So that results to an acceptance, and a proposal and acceptance together makes a promise, which is the foundation of an agreement. So we are first proposing to that person, yeah, if you enter into an agreement, you will get this and this. So that is, but the literal thing has to be followed. It signifies our willingness to do or not to do something. Say I'm saying that please invest in my stock, if you do that, then you'll get this much return. So with a view to obtaining the assent, so I'm trying to make that person do the thing that I want to, so I'm trying to get his assent. So with that purpose, or abstinence, or I'm telling please don't invest in another, say invest in my stocks, don't invest in another person's stock. So it's like a two-way thing. I'm at one end, I'm saying that please invest in my stock, that is I'm trying to get his assent, and also I'm trying to get his abstinence, that don't invest in another person's stocks. So that's 2A, clause A. And then we move on to clause B. When the person to whom the proposal is made signifies his assent thereto, the proposal is said to be accepted. A proposal, when accepted, becomes a promise. So that person said that okay, I'm going to invest 20% in your stocks, and so he accepted whatever I said him. He did not change anything. He accepted each of my wordings, or each of the thing that I told him, say orally or in written, as it is, like as I said to him, like completely in toto, they say. So that becomes acceptance. It has to be unconditional, the acceptance. It cannot have conditions. So whenever it is unconditional, like I'm accepting toto whatever you said, it becomes acceptance. And a proposal, when it is accepted, it becomes a promise. So I propose something, that other person accepted my offer, so then we have a binding promise between the two of us. The person who makes the proposal, so I'm making the proposal, I become the promiser, and the person who is accepting the proposal, he or she becomes the promisee, like lesser, lessee, and other transferer, transferee. So it always are and re. I've seen this trend, so that's what I'm saying. And then that is C. Clause C is that. Clause D is when at the desire of the promiser, the promisee or any other person has done or abstained from doing, or does or abstains from doing, or promises to do or abstains from doing something, such act or abstinence or promise is called a consideration for the promise. So, again, another thing, a contract or an agreement cannot proceed without a consideration. It can at some places where, in cases of beneficiaries or some other person, you know, abrogates in places of, sorry, I think I'm saying it wrong. Say another person steps into the shoe of the person to whom the benefit has been given, and he pays for that person. So in that case, that person doesn't have to give a consideration. So those are some exceptions that we will deal with in later part of the chapter, so I'm not going into that here. We'll just remember one thing, that is, without a consideration, a promise cannot, a contract or an agreement cannot happen. Contract agreement, we haven't gone to that. A promise cannot happen without a consideration. So what is the consideration that is in our example? It is money in our stocks, that 20% of my money or 20% of the other person's money that he or she is investing in my stocks, or 20% of my money, whatever you say, I am investing in that person's stock. So that 20% of money becomes the consideration. So if, say, if I'm the promiser, I'm the promisee, I have accepted the promise, and I, uh, by accepting the promise or proposal of the other person, invest the 20% of my money or draws the money from the bank and prepares it, and then actually puts it in the account of the other person, that becomes the consideration. And once the consideration is complete, the promise is binding. Every promise and every set of promises forming the consideration for each other is an agreement. So then it becomes an agreement. Each set of promises forming the consideration, every promise and every set of promises. So here we're talking about one set of promise, that is investing the 20%. So that becomes our consideration, and when I put that money in the account, it becomes a binding agreement. And we can write it down or we can keep it oral, anything. Promises which of our form the consideration or part of the consideration for each other are called reciprocal promises. So now in clause E, what we see, this was clause D, consideration for the promise. Clause E, we see every promise and every set of promises forming the consideration for each other is an agreement. So in our case, say I invested as proposed the 20% of my money in the promiser's say account. I'm the promisee, so I become the promisee now, just for example, and I'm investing that my 20% of money, I put it into his account, the account of the promiser. So now the transaction is complete, it becomes the agreement. It's a set of promise. He proposed, I accepted, it became a promise, I give the consideration, it became an agreement. So that happened. Now we move on to clause F. Promises which form the consideration or part of the consideration for each other are called reciprocal promises. So what is reciprocal promises? Say I have invested 20% of my money there in, say, the promiser's account. Now the promiser again says that whatever now he's putting it in his business. Now whatever surplus or whatever returns he will have from the business, that 20% or 10% he will give to me. So that becomes a reciprocal promise. He also puts it down. That is another set of promise. So that becomes a reciprocal promise for me. That is in clause F. Now we move on to G. An agreement not enforceable by law is said to be void. So what does that mean? That means we cannot promise each other, say, to how do I say, to rob a house or to kill someone, or to put up a unlawful assembly at the side of a road. So we cannot, that doesn't become, that is not lawful. The very act, or the very proposal, or the very, you can say, um, the foundation of the contract or the promise, that is unlawful. So when that is unlawful, the whole thing falls apart. It doesn't become a enforceable contract. Enforceable means, what is enforceable, that we all know. So a law has no meaning if it is not enforceable. I mean, it has a meaning, but it does not have that much a binding meaning if it's not enforceable. Enforceable means the law that can be actually used to change the society, or to make something better, or to change something. That is, it is used in practice, in practical way. That is enforceable, and which is done by the court of law. It is enforced mostly by the court of law. Also the executive um, portion, that is the police, and other forces, they also aid to that. So that is enforcement of the law. And if the very agreement is based on some foundation of promise that is unlawful, then it won't be enforceable. You can just write it in pen on paper and agree with each other. But if the other person says, no, I won't, say you are proposing to, say A is proposing to B, or let's not use A and B, say I am proposing to my opposite, I'm proposing to the opposite person that today at 12 o'clock come out of the house, and six people of us will gather in a 144 area. So that becomes a very much unlawful assembly, because 5% together, and with say with the lathis and all, will just meet. So I'm writing that, yeah, or I'm saying orally that if you do that, I'll give you, say, 20 rupees. And I give him 20 rupees. But at midnight he says that, no, I'm feeling sleepy, I won't come with you. So I can't go to the court of law and say that, see, I gave him 20 rupees, and he agreed that he will come out at 12 o'clock with lathis and all, and will gather somewhere, and like stand whatever. So that cannot be enforced. That is because that is an unlawful assembly, as we know, by BNS. It's very much against the law, and hence the very thing is unenforceable, and it becomes void. The agreement, very agreement, is void, the set of promises and everything. And we move on to H. An agreement enforceable by law is a contract. So whatever agreement is enforceable, say our original example, let's move on to that, that I will invest 20% in your stock, and you will give me 10% of that, so 10% of your returns. So that becomes, that is very much valid. So we're doing business, so that becomes a contract, because that is enforceable by law. So a contract is always enforceable by law. An agreement may not be enforceable by law always. Whenever we are promising something, giving a consideration, it becomes an agreement, but it might not be enforceable. But a contract is always enforceable, it has to be. An agreement which is, now we move on to I. An agreement which is enforceable